Gwen Ifill passed away 1 year ago on November 14th, 2016, but her legacy and memory live on for so many of us who considered her a friend, colleague, and mentor. Many of her fans write to us from time to time, letting us know they miss her smile. And for those who had the privilege to join her around this table, we knew you had to be prepared to discuss facts. There was no faking it. For Gwen, politics was a passion, truth-telling a calling. I wanted to ask each of you to share a memory about Gwen.
Well, you know, she was on Meet the Press, I want to say it was about a month before she died. And we were so excited. I knew she was battling something, but she was very private about it. And it was electrifying to have her on. It was just, you know, you could tell that, you know, she'd been a little thin, but it was same old Gwen. And I remember friends of hers emailing me and saying, boy, Gwen looks like this is great. And it was one of those, it was such it was just so great to have her on again, because, you know, since in the modern era of Meet the Press, when we made the political roundtable permanent, Gwen's the third most frequent guest of that roundtable on Meet the Press when we were doing our numbers to celebrate 70 years. So I feel privileged that I got to share a moment with her in that last month of her life. She was when I transitioned from print to television, she and I appeared together a lot on Meet the Press. She was a calming influence to me, explaining to me how network television works, because she made that awkward transition from print to television. It's not easy doing it, and she went out of her way to reach out to me when I had a couple of down moments in my career. There was Gwen to buck me up. And, you know, I remember when people were telling stories, you know, you realize, on one hand, Gwen made me feel special, and it was like, wow, I'm glad I'm not alone. She made a lot of people feel special. She had an amazing capacity to reach out and help people and mentor them. Sometimes you think, for no apparent reason at all, other than she just thought they did good work, and, you know, she's happy to help.
Yeah, I just remember how devastated I was when I learned that she'd passed. And Gwen was a really big deal, right? But she didn't act like it. She was so unpretentious, so incredibly down to earth, and she had a real eye for truth and a real curiosity about people. She had the soul of a reporter, and but she also knew her worth, and she didn't get pushed around. You know, she wasn't just a giver. She absolutely knew the difference between truth and a lie, and she would stick up for the truth as she saw it, and that was very valuable as well. We did a Washington week on the road in Colorado Springs a few months before she passed away, and I'm from Colorado. My parents came to see the show, and Gwen, before the taping began, brought them up on stage and had everybody wave and say hello to them, and they are still, I think, starstruck by that moment. But you know, there's so many people in Washington in particular, but probably in life in general, who judge themselves by what rung of the ladder they're on, and judge other people that way too. But she really judged people by their actual work. When I was new to DC and I hardly had any television experience, I started getting calls to come on this show before I got calls almost anywhere else, because she actually read your work and judged it based on the merits, not just based on who was on the radar or who seemed to be rising in some way.
Yeah,
that's really rare.
I got to know Gwen really in 1997. She was working for another network, and we were both on a 2-week trip by Hillary Clinton, then the First Lady of the United States, to Africa. And this was not a trip that was on the radar screen of anybody, because nobody really cared. She was the First Lady, and this was the era when we would send reporters for 2 weeks with the First Lady on a trip to Africa, which didn't seem all that newsy. And she was just fabulous. She was fun to be with. She was interested in everything around her. I remember she had just cut her hair before coming, and she was annoyed that all the producers back in Washington were sitting here talking to her about her hair. She said, I'm here in Africa with the First Lady of the United States. There are big things happening here. I'm in Tanzania, I'm in Uganda, I'm in South Africa, I'm with Nelson Mandela, and you guys want to talk to me about my hair. She was a very serious journalist. She cared about what was going on around her. She was wonderful to people, including my 12-year-old, who she knew from birth and who considered her to be kind of an aunt in a way. And she was a real journalist. And one of the things that struck me when she passed was all the tributes that were written about her and how she inspired journalists of color, in particular women of color. And I have to admit, I was kind of like a little surprised by that. And not because it doesn't make sense, of course it makes sense, but I thought she inspired all of us. And I just, it didn't even occur to me she would only, because I thought she was the best television journalist, present company except that I had ever known in my life. And I wanted more and more to be like her. She was curious, she was engaged, she was fair-minded, and she just wanted to know what was going on.
That is so true. I mean, she had this way of being very smart. I remember when I first came on here, and it was a thrill because Gwen Ifill was the best. Sure. And she had this way of just being so smart, but never phony. And she cared about the journalism. And it was there's just so much.
I just love what you sort of peeled back the onion of what I was getting at when you were saying a certain television network. I'm aware of the television network she worked at.
She worked at NBC.
She worked at NBC.
It's true of all networks.
It is true of all networks. No, but that was
meant to be.
No, and that's the advice that she was so helpful with. Is like, look, there is a silliness sometimes to television, and you just got to learn to balance it, and how to sort of keep calm and keep focused on why they hired you. They hired you because you were a good reporter, type of thing. And so she would sort of reboost that confidence and sort of give you the confidence, hey, it's okay to push back at them.
That's right.
You know, it's okay to challenge them.
And she was real. The other thing, people would stop me in the street and say, I saw you on Washington Week. What's Gwen like? I said,
yes.
Gwen is exactly like you think she is. She's exactly the same on air, off air. She's just a real, authentic person. She's not, there's no artifice, none whatsoever.
And you know, when she took over the show in 1999, it was for a long time Washington Week in Review. And then she made it Washington Week, and her reason for that was she wanted to look ahead. She wanted to, of course, look back on the week, but she was always trying to look ahead. What's next? I remember at the table watching the show then as a guest. There's always, what does this mean for people? That's the other thing, Gwen. Gwen was the ultimate insider in the best sense, but she had such an outside touch in understanding policy and people.
It's very important the way you're recognizing her here, because in many ways she revitalized this show.
Mm-hmm.
She did. She brought it back. Look, you know, I grew up. My father watched it, and he used to watch Paul Duke, and then Louis Rukeyser came on after it, and all of that. And so we were devoted fans then. And then it waned, and then Gwen just brought this electricity back to it, both intellectual and personal, that really helped in sort of what Tim Russer did for Meet the Press in the 90s.
Totally, that's a great
Gwen
place.
Ifill did for Washington Week. It's a tremendous professional legacy as well.
And I think it's a similar skill set, right? It's the absolute nose for BS.
Yes.
The ability to call someone out when they're BSing you, and the relationship with the viewers. Mm-hmm. That was something that Russer had and that Gwen absolutely had, was just the feeling that so many people on the other side of the screen, that they were connected to them.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
You got it.